What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment. Let us know what you think about the episode. If there's a particular guest or topic you'd like to have on, we always check comments on there and love to be able to work your guys' suggestions into future episodes. Today I'm going to be chatting with Josh McCormack. We chatted with him right before UCC, talking about building the truck, and then I wanted to catch up with him after the event. He did really well. I wanted to ask him about the truck, the performance, the team, how everything went, his thoughts on it. So it's going to be a great conversation. Before we get to it, though, I want to remind you guys that our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 20% off site-wide code for you. Use code 23diesel20 at kershaw.kaiusa.com. You get 20% off site-wide. They got a ton of different knives, really to meet any budget. So if you need something for hunting, fishing, EDC, something to have at the job site, around the house, they got you covered. Their latest model is a Duralock model, and the blade's made out of D2 steel. It's a super sweet, smooth opening mechanism. It's almost effortless, and it keeps your fingers away from the blade when you open and close it. They've got a bunch of different designs, so definitely make sure and head on over, check them out. Use code 23diesel20 if you're in the market for it. All right, let's get to today's episode with Josh, chatting about his UCC performance, his thoughts on it, what his plans are with the truck, and some of the insights that he learned. Josh, welcome back to chat about the truck post-UCC. I really appreciate you sitting down with us beforehand to walk us through the preparation for it and your goals and business and everything. And then that episode, a lot of people loved hearing from you. And it was really cool this past weekend to see the performance of it. So I thought it'd be great to sit down, chat with you, see what you think about each of the days, the performance, how everything came together. So welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
So tell me about the experience. Like what was it like?
I mean, I kind of feel bad because it really wasn't that bad for our team. Like we went into it, like I had my goals, which I was pretty public about. I wanted a 5-second pass, anything over 2,500 horsepower, we were going to be happy with. And then I wanted to pull 300 feet. And, I mean, realistically, that weekend, we just did everything that we wanted to do. I know 3K has always been the goal, but at the same token, when I don't have another truck ready to go sled pull and it's all back to one truck, you kind of got to really weigh the options. So, we get there. Everybody that flew in and drove in and stuff. And everyone that sees on YouTube, like I pretty much built this truck by myself, but at events and stuff, like you can't do it by yourself. Like you're kidding yourself if you can. And, so I had just a lot of good group of guys and gals fly in. We went drag racing first pass, 626, I believe. I thought we had the nitrous turned on. I was incorrect. So that was like a fuel only pass. Basically, the nitrous was commanded to shut off above 15 PSI instead of shut off below 15 PSI. So that was my bad. Ethan Patterson's the one that did the nitrous tune up. And I was just like, take this laptop, make me go fast. And we didn't really touch the nitrous tune up all day because after that, we went back up again right before lunch, 616. I totally botched all the shifts because this truck is still a full manual valve body truck, so I have to actually shift it myself. Then I talked to all the pro drivers and stuff, and they're like, if you want to, you can make a hit, but they're like, you're not going to do very good. The track gets greasy, the air is real hot. So I was just like, you know what, at 6,825 pounds on a 48 RE, you don't have to do the math on how long that's going to live. So we waited until pretty much 10 o'clock at night. We got all staged up and everything just worked correctly. Like the nitrous came on right. I shifted right. We staged it right. And we went 583 at 130 mile an hour, which in this truck is a new personal best for me ever. I've gone 560s in the old DDP truck, but this one, it kind of meant a little bit more to me just because, it's like legit my truck. Like I bought it bone stock. So it was kind of cool in that regard. And realistically, nothing went wrong. We checked the second gear band. It was fine. Checked the fluid, the oil, all of that was fine. We cut the oil filter open one more time because we did have that rod bearing problem like 2 weeks before UCC. The oil filter looked great. So we went on to dyno day. Quite simply, we strapped a third nitrous bottle onto the 2 that were already in the cab with like a ratchet strap. I had my team pull my driver door off. And then we pulled the some of the interior panels off, and we pulled like the removable door bars out. Basically, we wanted it, if something did happen, as quickly as I could get out of the truck without, getting hurt. I mean, you have fire suit, fire suppression, you have everything you can, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, for anybody that's been at that power level, like if you don't take it serious, like that's when you're going to get hurt. And I feel like everyone gets like one blow up and it really changes their perspective of how they want to, behave on the dyno. And it's, I mean, really you just sit there and, you got Cody by my side, which I've known Cody for years. So you get comfortable with Cody and we get the truck all calibrated on the dyno. And then I just basically did exactly what Levon told me to do. You get the truck basically screaming at 3,200 RPM, 50 pounds of boost. And it was weird. Like the load kept going in and out. So I don't know if like that was my fault or the dyno just acting up, or maybe it was hot outside, but it took me probably a good 30 seconds to get everything ironed out. I got frustrated. So I just let off the throttle, started over again. And then I knew I had it. You start to hear the turbos really wind up. And I just look at the stack, like it's ready for big power when you start to see the smoke, like either pick up a ton of velocity or start to get kind of gray. And that's what I saw. I look down 3,200 RPM. I look up 50 pounds of boost and you just smack the accelerator. And it either takes it or it doesn't. You make that real quick hit. The motor starts to wind down. You're listening for like connecting rods banging around and everything else. And everything looked fine. Cody gets out, 28.79 was our number. And I'll be honest, in the heat of the moment, I was ready to do it again. And my crew was like, don't do it anymore. And I got to give it to them. They were right. So we pulled it off. At that point, I think there was only a couple people behind me. So I knew I was going to get a banner. And that was another one of my goals. I wanted to bring home something that said I had been to UCC, not just like a frame picture or something. Like I wanted like one of those big shop banners to just like, finally say I've been there, did it, I did all right, So we did that, and then we started punching in scores. All of a sudden, I was in third place, and not by much. So we were doing all the math. Going into sled pull day, we knew we needed 29.34 feet on Hunter Coffee, and I needed to put, I think it was like 3 feet on Tony Burkhart's team. And we get the trucks changed over to sled pull. It takes about an hour on my truck to change it. Really, the wheels and tires are really the biggest, pain in the butt. But we get it all changed over. I pull it out to spool it up. Just what I thought was oil just all over my window. And I was like, oh my God, like we hurt something, So knowing what we knew about the dyno, I was like, maybe we just oversped a charger, pushed the seal out. Like, I mean, my turbo setup, when I tell people how small it is, they are very, I mean, obviously nitrous plays a huge factor, but it's just a black tie race fab 480 ball bearing and a 115 housing, T6. And then it's a forced inductions GTR 55. It's a 110 millimeter. And then it's got the 116 turbine and a 1.0 open T6 housing. So very, very small turbos with tight housings. And finally, we just called Johnny from Stainless over. I think Whitley went and grabbed him. I was like, just see if Johnny will come over here for a second. I was like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So Johnny came over. He's like, nah, like this turbo looks fine. He's like, that almost looks like water. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And he's like, do you have like water in this? And I was like, we have water in the head. And he was like, you might have, pushed some water into exhaust port, because we fired it up without the second turbo on, and just instantly probably a half a gallon of water came pouring out of the hot pipe. So big thank you to Johnny. We put the turbos back on, drained the coolant out of it, and we were ready to go sled pulling. We spooled it up one more time, and the water problem fixed itself. So you can run a truck dry like that. It's not obviously the best for hot lapping, but for one sled pull, one dyno hit, one drag strip pass, like it's not going to hurt anything. So we went sled pull tech, weighed in. That's the one thing that really kills my truck, is that it's so heavy already. Normally I pull this truck in like an 8,500 pound street diesel or a 9,000 pound street diesel. So I can put, 2,000 pounds on the front. Well, we can only put, I think it was like 580 pounds up front. And you start doing the math on like hitch height and stuff. And I was just like, man, we're going to break something if we go crazy. And Greg was close enough to us where if I really screwed up, he could beat us and we'd be out of third. So I kind of made the judgment call to not kill it on the sled pull off the line. And we went 304, which is good enough for 5th place. Tony Burkhart was the last hook. They beat us. I won't forget it. I don't know if it was like, I don't know who that lady was in relation to Tony, but she was like cheering or whatever. She turns around in the bleachers and looks at me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "No, like I'm happy for him." I mean, I grew up in this industry watching Tony Burkhart and their team compete at UCC. So, being second loser or first loser to those guys, like we shared a tent all weekend. I watched those guys from Tony on down. Everyone was working and it was really cool to see. I've already kind of said sometimes business owners don't get the credit for like working on the truck or they're just not interested in it. But like Tony was like elbows deep in it, and everyone really put it. It was impressive to watch what their team was able to do in a weekend, like straighten a truck out on a gooseneck trailer. We were cracking up. They were like, "Oh, did you get any sleep?" And I was like, "Yeah, there was like a dance party till 3:00 in the morning over there." But that's part of sleeping in the pits, right? And it was just cool, like a lot of new faces this year. And just, anybody that was there, it's an achievement. I mean, it really is. And for us to go from almost dead last in 21 to 6th place last year to 2nd place this year, like we're going in the right direction and that's all that matters. And really when I sit down on the drive home, Meyer and I were talking about, oh, if we would have done this better. And I was like, we will what if ourselves to death. I was like, I just need to realize that like we did the best we could and that's it. And again, you couldn't lose to a better team than DHD as far as like their class and everything else that they have. Like it's very cool to watch their team work. So yeah, I drove it on the trailer. It's in the shop now. I've just been kind of looking at it for the past week, trying to catch back up on all the customer work that we had talked about before that I have just been seen to the side. So it's back to the regular grind.
Well, on the previous episode we talked about strategy for everything. And I know as far as assessing that, do you think if you do it again or next year, would you make some adjustments to the strategy, or do you think that the one that you had in place for this year is kind of dialed in? And the reason I ask that is recently I chatted with Johnny from Stainless Diesel, and we were talking about just racing at the level that he does. And variables were one thing we talked about, with how hot the track can get, how sticky it can be, and how it can vary from hour to hour to hour. And that kind of got me thinking about something I really didn't before, which is how many variables are there, and you have to have a plan put together. And I immediately thought of our conversation and how you talked about these goals that you had. So I'm curious, with the experience that you have now from this year, has that changed any of the philosophy you have with a strategy for competition like this?
I got to give a shout out to really KOS on that, because you just learn like the point system and the calculator. And it was like, even in some of the, like when Charles was talking in the booth, when I came up for my last pass, he's like, yeah, we were playing around on the score calculator, and he just like blew that estimate out. Like you gotta understand like the truck's limits, the hard part limits, me as a driver, my limits. Like, no, it's no secret. Like everyone knows I'm terrible at drag racing, like, and I'm okay with that. But like, just, I guess being old enough to realize like I don't have the skill to go, low fives yet. Like I don't. Like every time I go like a 5 now, it catches me off guard, and you just that everything hits so fast that you're just not ready for it. So I think going into it next year, if we do it next year, I think the only thing I would probably change is how heavy the truck is. I feel like I kind of gotten my point across that you can do it with a really modified street truck, if you want to call it that. Really, I feel like Daniel Hargrove really took the cake on street truck. He didn't change anything. We put like a solid block in it, but you just reached the limit of. It was like I talked to a lot of the pro guys after we went 583, and they're like, you can keep adding power, but they're like, you're putting 2,300 horsepower down. Like, let's say you go 2,500, they're like, it's really not going to do much. But they're like, if you put, 500 pounds off that truck, you, and we were playing with the calculator, I think it dropped it down to like 2,000 horsepower. So you're talking about 15% less horsepower to go with the same, and the stress on everything. And I mean, I don't care what transmission you put in here. And I mean, I feel like any trans builder would agree with me. Like, that is a lot of weight to make it move that quick and not break stuff. So I think going into it next year, we would just probably put the fiberglass bedsides I have laying over here in the corner on. And then I would probably buy another set of doors and maybe gut them or put some fiberglass doors. But if we could get it down to like 6,000, 5,900 pounds, it would give us two things. Number one, it would give us a lot lighter of a truck for drag racing so we could go faster. And then on the sled pole, I could put a lot more weight up front and make the chassis happier. And then I guess, I don't know, maybe 4-link it. But I mean, really, after you've done these events so many times, you realize, like, I always tell people, pick two things you want to be really, really good at, and one thing that is just okay. And that has always been for me drag racing. It doesn't matter, King of the Street, UCC. I've always like drag racing. 583 is still quick, but there was 5 guys that went faster than me by like a lot. And the dyno is just, it wasn't worth as much this year as in years prior, in my opinion, just because there were so many guys that were stacked like right at that 2,000 horsepower number, 18, 17. It was a really tight field on the dyno. The only exception being myself, like 400 points out. But the sled pull really mattered this year. I mean, it really decided the top 3, on a sled pull. And I can't remember the last time at UCC a team has made up that much ground in a sled pull since like maybe Power Driven did it with their mechanical truck. I know like last year the sled pull didn't matter at all. I think the top 3 stayed the top 3. And then they changed. I think they made the scoring on the drag race maybe a little different, because I felt like if you went like 6s, like you were dead in the water on points. So, that's what I always do. I love the sled pull. The dyno is absolutely terrifying at this point, but it's one of those things, like, a lot of people care about it. It's probably the most watched part of that event as far as the UCC side goes. And it's like an incredible feat, in my own opinion. Like, whoever builds the engine that does those smacks, whether it's like D&J that does, Ziegler's program and Firepunk's program, or like Chris does his own, I do my own. Like, when you think about how much stuff gets stuffed into that cylinder in a second or less, like, that to me is just such a cool achievement. And that's why I think the dyno has mattered to me, is it's like, it just showcases everything that I can do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In that whole weekend, do you get a chance to like talk with people, like the people come up to you and say, hey, I follow you on YouTube, or I've watched you from the early days, or hey, I'm out here for the first time, I'm going to do, drag racing or something. Any kind of tips? What's it like mixing in, like, you focus there to achieve something, but then there's so many enthusiasts that are there, and probably a lot of them look up to you or just wanted to meet you or ask you a question. What's that like?
It's kind of like a little bit surreal, because like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, I'm just like a normal guy that started in a 2-car garage, and that's just turned into like my life now. So it's cool to like meet people, and like, I don't know, like, to me, I'm real weird. Like, I enjoy like seeing people build their own stuff and like go out, and even if it's like ET or 770 or 670, like, that's like, to me, like the heart and soul of this industry is the guys that are doing it in their driveway. And I always try to help those guys. Again, I'll do anything for you if you want to buy some parts from us, and I'll help you set them up. And I get like the sense of like self-earned and, do my own stuff, because I'm like that. And I really enjoy meeting those people. And I got to meet a lot of cool people, and you get to meet, or not necessarily meet, but you get to talk to a lot of different people. Like, it's not very often you get to talk to like Lenny Reed in person or Chase Fleece in person or Brett from Industrial, like, and all those people come over and they want to check on you. Cause I would say I'm one of the few competitors that has really figured out how to take a bunch of parts from a lot of different companies and make them all work. And once something like works well, I don't really change much. Like a lot of the stuff that I've been doing engine wise is like, it works. So I don't mess with it, you know? So I like that aspect. And then just meeting people, or like, I think the weirdest thing is like taking pictures with people. Cause I don't even like taking pictures with my family, let alone like people I don't know. And then I always just have to remind myself, like, you know, that's part of why I'm able to afford this, is everyone gets to watch on YouTube and stuff. So that's cool. And then I think like one of the humblest things I had over the weekend was I was doing an interview. It's not Charles, it's the other UCC announcer, and I'm drawing a blank, but he pulled me up in the stands after my poll, and like he asked how many people watched my YouTube channel, and it was like I couldn't believe how many hands went up, and that to me is like really cool, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really important part of it. And a lot of things that you mentioned is how people like to do things themselves. I've always felt, ever since I ever really paid attention to diesels, a lot of the guys I knew who had them, or people who were into performance, they like to work on them themselves. And I've seen that throughout the years. And I wanted to ask you this question is, when you think from that perspective, you like to do things for yourself and put it, you know, kind of all together. And I think that there can be this point where it's tough to ask for help or advice or something like that. What would you tell somebody who is doing that? And I'll step back for a second. The reason I was thinking this was, I think of trying to do anything. It could be a sport, it could be a skill, something like that. There is a sense of, I'm not sure what the right word for it is, but when you figure out something on your own and you have that aha moment, it's so cool. And then you start to push yourself, but you can hit a wall, and it could be with drag racing, it could be at a certain speed, or sled pulling, or dyno, or whatever you might be doing, where there's dozens or hundreds of people who've come before you that have fought the same thing and got past it. What would you tell somebody who's maybe hesitant to ask, or hesitant to say, hey, I've kind of hit a wall. What should I do, you know, to go next? I think we can get stubborn and kind of in that mindset where if I don't figure it out myself, well, then I don't deserve it. But I think everybody needs some advice at some point with, you know, whatever setup, whatever build. I mean, this goes for the business stuff we talked about. It goes for a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, really, I don't know. It's hard for me because oh God, man, I climbing that tree, I probably fell down a million times, you know, and I was just fortunate enough to really just have the financial backing for my stubbornness. But I mean, even now, I mean, you got to weigh, like, it was like when I asked, you know, Levon and Firepunk for help, it's not that I hate those guys. I mean, I know a ton of their employees, and they're always great people to be around. But you're just like, damn, like, I know I'm close, but then you start looking at all the time that you've put into something, and it's like, man, is it really worth the pride? And I mean, really, for me, it was just growing up. Like, my ego I'm not going to say it's completely gone, right? But it's like, I just looked at it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to and that's all I did. I think I shot Rick Fox a message, because that's normally how we go through. Rick Fox is like the customer service. I said, hey, I want to schedule this time. I want to learn this or whatever. And I think the big thing for like any business is, never once did I really mention the term like free or sponsor this or anything like that. And I think it really helps set the tone of like, okay, it's not like he expects anything from us or anything like that. He just wants to learn. He's willing to pay his fair share. And I think realistically on anything like that, you know, it's like guys that buy engine parts or anything from me. Like, if I made a little bit of money on it, like, I'm going to help you out. And like, I would set your rings here, and I would set your bearings between this spec. Don't go past here, because this doesn't work, you know? And I think that's really the big thing, is just, if you're going to ask people for help, like, make sure you're supporting their means of their business. And I feel like, a lot of people that ask me questions, like they've always either bought like a YouTube t-shirt or, I mean, just something as simple as that, just to at least keep us going, and I'm happy to help. And even like it's not like everyone has to, I don't send people a PayPal link or anything like that, but you have your friends that you do anything for, and you have customers that they've just been real loyal to you, and you always are willing to help them out. And that's the big thing with me is if people just come and ask for anything help wise and stuff, I usually do try to help them out. And, either I hope they come back and buy stuff from us so I can continue on. And I think that's really the biggest thing is, it's fine to ask for help, but make sure you're supporting the company that's trying to help you, I think is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like if I was going to build a truck myself, maybe not a UCC level truck.
Yeah.
And I just had a budget and I ordered some parts and I put it together. I might not do it correctly. I might make a mistake with something. But if I call you up and I say, hey, this is what I want, this is how I'm doing it, I'm paying for your experience as well, which you've had, the experience, the failures, the successes. I'm paying for that success or that experience, which is just what I want. I think that's really crucial for people that are into the performance side of it, or maybe even not. Maybe it's just like you want a truck that tows better or whatever it might be, is being able to support these companies and these people that are invested in you. And I think it creates a really strong dynamic in the community as well, which I'd love to see more of it. I'd love to see it grow even stronger. Is like, I don't even know, how much time, money, effort, frustration, happiness, confusion you've personally been through building trucks, but I imagine it's a lot. Yeah. And you can take that and help someone do it. So I think that's for the future of trucks and really any capacity. It's really important for the truck owners out there to think about that. Think about where you're giving your money to. Think about why the price might be $5 different or $100 different or what it might be. It's not just the part, it's the experience and then the support that you're paying for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's really, I can't really say it much better than that. And that's really the cool part about it is, I purchase parts sometimes, like, for instance, like I used to use a different brand of engine oil. That was what I used. And then I started looking at like Hot Shots and how they're at every event and they sponsored all of the major, they did some pulling, they did some ODSS, and you just like, that's kind of almost how I look at things. Is I look at like, okay, which companies are willing to invest in all these events that we go to? And it's like, oh, they're always there. They always have a rep there. And after a while, I ended up realizing that I really just love the Hot Shots product. But like certain things like that, even you look at who goes to all these events, and even just like small shops like ourselves, like I always try to go to ODSS events. I might not bring my baddest truck. I might just bring an ET truck, but I always try to like go to those and I talk to people and stuff, and you build like really good relationships. And that's what I always tell people, like, look at, who is willing to put back into the industry that they profit off of. And then another thing too is sometimes just look at, for your local shops. There's a lot of shops out there that do insane work, and UCC is a really cool way for them to kind of, poke their head in the door. Like I look at it, like Epling, Logan Epling with Epling Motorsports. A lot of people might not know he had his own shop, but they do now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something. It's really interesting you mentioned that side of it, because like for doing podcasts and just talking about truck parts and maintenance and everything like that, I can see it as well. I can see places that like they're always willing to jump on the podcast to talk about a part or answer a listener question, and then there's other ones where it's like it's really hard to get them to engage with the truck owners listening, and you probably see it on YouTube a lot. And it's something that's always kind of stuck in the back of my head is, I can think of places that they want to engage with people. They want to talk with them. They want to be present. They want to educate. They want to do these things. And those brands really stick out to me. There are a lot of them out there, but I'd love to see it grow even more, because, the way that we reach people, the way that we talk to them, the information people are looking for is different. Like, we've talked about it in years past, like you hit 2,879 horsepower. Like 1,500 used to be insane. 2,000 was insane. And the level these trucks are going to and how you guys keep them together, that's the thing that really sticks out to me is the power level and the abuse they're able to take now. And the brands that help you, the people, yourself, you're putting the engine together. Just people being able to see that and know that it's something that's really exciting. And it's kind of new. Like the industry is always evolving and changing and growing in different ways. And so I think the relationship between like racer, shop owner, manufacturer, truck owner, guy who just bought his first diesel, one who's always owned diesels, how we all interact and, kind of spread that knowledge or support each other is really crucial moving forward. So I think the things you talked about really highlight that, just how important it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, to me, like I always have time for people. If I'm at events and stuff, I always try to make time. Obviously, if I'm like thrashing on the truck, I'm going to have to get back with you. But I mean, to me, like, it's just really weird, because I don't know, man. I guess I just grew up differently or whatever. But like, I don't, even when like in my YouTube, very rarely do I put the camera on myself. It's always kind of awkward. I always try to like talk, hold the phone and I'm talking behind there and doing that. And it's just, I don't know. It's always a humbling experience seeing how many people watch it. And I mean, you see it on your analytics. I mean, I'm sure you do too. And you look at like how many views and stuff. And then when you start to like meet the people that are watching this, it's like a real surreal experience, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of responsibility with it too, because people, that's with the last episode we did. People loved having you on. They're like, dude, I love hearing him just talk about stuff, his perspective. It's really cool. So you've got a lot of people and a lot of fans that love to hear your perspective on things. And that's why, I wanted to sit down again. I've always enjoyed chatting with you, but especially seeing how the truck performed, the things you told us. I know it was a big accomplishment to do it the way that you did it. And so it was really cool. Again, I appreciate you taking time with me, on a weekend for us to connect and be able to chat with it. And if you do it again, man, I want to chat with you beforehand and after, and I know you'll do really well and hit the goals that you want.
Yeah, I think now I just got to track down a Superflow and try it. I'm going to give myself, I told myself I want to give myself about a month of like just hunkering back down kind of on what pays the bills and stuff. And like today, all I've been doing is like cleaning the shop up. It gets so bad, Yeah. And I mean, I want to 3K is the next goal I want to do. And I don't know. I mean, now that this truck's gone 583, everyone's like, oh, you could run 590. And I'm like, or we could go faster. Faster sounds a lot more. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to destroy everything, but it sounds a lot more fun right now. So we might try some Pro Street. But again, I'm going to give myself a little break. Like last night I slept for 11 hours. Felt pretty good.
Awesome. Thanks again for chatting with me, Josh.
No problem.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 23diesel20 for 20% off site-wide. They've got a ton of cool knives, a bunch of cool gear. So if you're looking to get something for hunting, fishing, EDC, they've definitely got you covered. Their latest model is the Duralock, and it's a sweet setup. It's got a D2 steel blade. The opening mechanism is really smooth. There's a bunch of different blade styles to choose from, handle designs. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure, head on over, check them out. I also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters. Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, J. Cole John, all of our other Patreons, all of you who subscribe on YouTube, podcast apps, follow us on social media pages or on our Discord. We appreciate all your support here in Year 7 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content you want to hear in 2023. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.